everyone, and thank you for joining us today. In this video we're walking you through how to care for and condition the flowers in your DIY all-inclusive flower package. Now, receiving your beautiful blooms is such an exciting moment. However, how you handle your flowers right now will make all the difference on how they look on your big day. Now, when your flowers arrive, don't be alarmed if they look a little sleepy or thirsty. That's totally normal. Think of it like a long road trip. After hours of travel, you'd feel a little stiff and tired, right? So with the right care, your flowers will perk up and be ready for your wedding in no time at all. So in this video, I'm focusing on the 5 types of flower varieties: roses, gypsophila, carnations and spray carnations, hydrangea and eryngium. They're all used in your wedding pack. Now, the latter products, hydrangea and eryngium, are only included in the larger packs. So let's start with the roses. Now, when your roses arrive, they will arrive tightly packed, and if they're Colombian roses, they will have a cardboard collar around them and cellophane. Remove the cellophane. I would recommend leaving the cardboard collar in place while you condition the stems, because that actually helps to support the necks. Sometimes what will happen is if you don't get correct hydration and the water is able to move all the way up the cell structure to the top of the head, then the neck will become very weak. It will then droop, and if you don't keep it in that upright position, once it does start to take drink and keep turgid and start to become turgid, you won't get that lovely straight head. So just keep the head supported whilst it's drinking. Now, cut the stem at a sharp 45-degree angle. This helps to expose more cell structure to the water, so it hydrates more efficiently. You can go one step further than that by slitting the stem up. Now, again, the same principle. If I just gently tease that stem apart for the moment, just to illustrate, you've got cell structure exposed there and there, as opposed to just that bottom part of the stem. So naturally it's going to hydrate more readily. It will allow the water to move on and up the cell structure to the neck more quickly. So remove any of the leaves that are going to be below the waterline, because if they are submerged in water, they will deteriorate much more quickly than the stems and cause bacteria to form. Roses are very susceptible to bacteria and ethylene gas, so just make sure that they're removed. You can also, they can be popped into the vase now at this point if you want to, or if you prefer, you can at this stage remove any of the outer guard petals. Now, this is a natural occurrence with roses. The guard petals are a slightly firmer, almost a scruffy petal if you like, that are on the outside of the roses, and I like to think of those as the rose's self-preserving mechanism to stop them getting damaged when they're in close proximity to other roses. So removing those petals will actually give you a more aesthetically pleasing looking rose, and then you can pop those into your vase ready for conditioning. Now, ideally change the water every 2 to 3 days. When you change the water, obviously re-add flower food each time. And if they do start to droop, it may well be, as I mentioned earlier, that they've got an air block formed in the neck. So if the heads start to droop, that's a good sign that that might be the case. To help rectify this, repeat the process of cutting the stem at an angle and slitting the stem up, then pop it into about 10 centimetres of boiling hot water for a few minutes before then arranging. Now, you can imagine if your feet were put into boiling water, you'd snap up pretty quickly as well. So that helps just to remove that air block and return the rose to its normal cell structure. Now, you may find when you do that the stem you've placed into the boiling water does turn black, or at least discolour. So just remove that part before repeating the process and then arranging as you would normally. So that's our roses. Next up, I'm going to move on to our gypsophila. Now, gypsophila is one of the most popular wedding flowers, and when it arrives, it will come in bunches, bound quite tightly together, often so tight it's actually got paper around it And you'd think you'd only got about 3 or 4 stems, when in actual fact, when you open it up, it's a bunch of 25. So it's quite a surprise that they expand. Now, because it's so tightly bound, you'll find the stems are quite difficult to separate. Now, if you do just lay the bunch on the bench and start to try and pull them apart, you'll find you just end up with what looks like a load of confetti everywhere. So an easier way to remove them from each other, or to separate them gently, is to do what I call the twist and turn method, which is you just shake the gypsophila round, twist it so it gently teases away from the other stems, and then you'll find separating it is so much easier. I'll just lay these stems back on the bench while we condition the gypsophila. Now, as a general rule of thumb, you'll find with gypsophila, or gyp, or baby's breath you might know it as, you'll get several breaks. So if you do need to break some of the stems off because you're just using the top part, retain those, condition them as you would usually, and then you can use those for the smaller designs such as buttonholes, corsages and smaller designs. But the same principle as with the rose, cut the stem at a sharp 45-degree angle and pop it into fresh buckets of clean water with flower food. Ideally store them somewhere nice and cool. They prefer a slightly warmer storage environment than some of the more delicate flowers, so I'd say about 10 degrees Celsius. Don't store them near fruit because of the ethylene gas that will ripening fruit kind of produces, so it's going to actually kill any flowers off very, very quickly. And change the water every 2 to 3 days to keep them looking fresh. Very robust flower and it lasts really well. So a really good one to have included in your bridal box. I'm going to follow on with carnations and spray carnations. Now, the principle with those is exactly the same for the spray car and the carnation, and they're known for their long vase life. But proper care is still key. Now, one important thing with carnations to bear in mind, and spray carnations, is they have these little nodes, almost like a knot in the stem, if you like. Now, if you cut just below that node, you'll find that the water doesn't have a clear pathway all the way up the stem. It's almost got this obstacle before it can start to drink. So by cutting above the node, you've got that clear passageway for the water to move up the stem before it meets its first resistance, as it were. Now, store them in a well ventilated area to prevent moisture build-up, and change the water every 3 to 4 days. Recut the stems and replace them into the water that's got fresh flower food. And like gypsophila, avoid placing near fruit. So that's our carnations and spray carnations. Next, I'm going to move on to one of my favourite flowers, which is hydrangea. Now, hydrangeas are breathtaking, but they do need extra care. They can be delicate little flowers, shall we say. Now, to keep the hydrangeas hydrated, they do drink from the stem as well as the head. And as the name Hydra would suggest, they love water. So on arrival, if the heads are starting to look a little bit droopy and wilting, then I would cut the stem at a sharp angle, as we've done before, and slit the stem up, once again like we've done before, and then completely submerge those, the head and the stem, in water for a good 6 to 8 hours. Then remove the stem, allow them to drip dry, and they should gently perk up and become turgid and solid like these ones are. Ensure that the bucket that you're using is scrupulously clean. Make sure you include flower food in the vase, and misting them regularly helps to keep them looking fresh and vibrant. I would suggest, ideally, if you can, mist them every single day. If you do find that once again they do start to droop slightly, just repeat the process and submerge them in water. Now they don't particularly like to be arranged in floral foam. They much prefer to be in fresh water. You will reduce their lifespan if you use them in floral foam, so ideally water in a vase, and if you do need some kind of form to hold them in position, use chicken wire or something similar. So that's our hydrangea. Lastly, but by no means least, we have the beautiful eryngium or sea holly. Now, nothing quite substitutes for sea holly because it's got that beautiful striking textural element that floral arrangements need. Now, to prepare it, exactly the same principle as all of the other flowers. Cut the stems at a sharp angle. Remove any of the foliage that's going to be below the waterline. And by foliage, we mean these little clusters of leaves. Now it is quite spiky, as you can see. The ends of the blooms can actually be quite sharp to touch. So if you are susceptible to allergies or you have quite a delicate skin, I would recommend that you use gloves. That will also protect a manicure leading up to the wedding, or perhaps use a barrier cream. They can be an irritant, especially if you're using them en masse. So that's our eryngium. Now, caring for the flowers properly is the key to making the most of your DIY all-inclusive flower package. With these simple steps, your flowers will be fresh, vibrant, and picture perfect for your wedding day. Take your time and enjoy the process. This is all part of the memory making for your big day. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.